Ladies and gentlemen, the FootballScoop Podcast is back. Thank goodness. Happy Easter to all. And now it's Tuesday, and Kliff Kingsbury is headed to work with Lincoln Riley. What a world. That's the news from last night. Kliff Kingsbury is going to be joining USC staff in a outstanding role for him, a great life move for him, in my opinion. We'll dive into that. He's going to be theoretically working with the quarterbacks. He's going to be working hand in hand with Lincoln, and he's not going to be one of the 10, is my understanding. So he's not going to have to, quote, recruit. Not that there's a big grind of recruiting when you work for USC, and it's all pretty much within a 2-hour drive on campus, and everybody comes to you. So I love the move. JB, Zach Barnett, college football experts, I want to hear your thoughts. John, Brice, how about I start with you? Give me some thoughts on this move.
Yeah, I think it's a great move for everybody involved. It lets Kliff sort of satisfy his football itch. NFL guy told me that he's made well over $50 million already when you factor in his contract value of being fired from the Cardinals. And so this makes sense for everybody. It's a great recruiting tool for USC, whether or not Kliff is one of the 10. And like you, I don't believe that he will be. But this is a win for everybody. And anything that gets this much attention on college football in the spring, I think, is also a win for college football in general.
I mean, isn't this the job that Kliff has been working his entire life to have? I mean, I don't want to be reductionist, but he gets to live anonymously in Los Angeles. He doesn't need another penny, and he doesn't have to do anything but ball. I mean, obviously, he at Texas Tech didn't love recruiting. Arizona Cardinals, he was the head coach. You don't have the recruiting aspect there, but obviously, when you're the head coach, you're responsible for a lot more than just calling plays. And now he gets to coach quarterbacks and scheme up plays and have very little responsibility outside of that. I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead, but I could see him wanting to stay in this position for a good bit.
So I know Kliff decently well, and Kliff is far more of a grinder than most people realize. He's one of the hardest working coaches I've ever met. He's a first guy in, he works every minute he's there. So I'm interested to see how that translates at USC. At USC generally is not that mindset. He's a 365-day guy, 365-day-year guy working. I do believe that has shifted as he's gotten a little bit older, as he's gotten into his 40s. I think he's seeing more of a world perspective and realizing there are other things out there. And he's seeing how, as a coach, you can improve by being away from the office some and getting other perspectives and adding other life lessons. So I think he'll mature in this role. I also love that it keeps him in Los Angeles, out west. It's the lifestyle that he really has grown to enjoy. I think he's going to enjoy being there, and I think it sets him up for great opportunities on that coast in the future.
That was going to be my next point, frankly, Scott, is that I think that this, again, as I alluded to, keeps him very active with a pulse on the game, especially of college football, which I still think is where a lot of people associate Kliff. But it just keeps him around the game in a very high-profile program without having the highest pressure of that program. And it does keep him very visible out on the West Coast, where you could have openings a year from now or 6 months from now, 7 months from now, either at the collegiate or the NFL level. So, again, I think it's huge for Kliff. I also think, even though recruiting, we all believe, is not the hardest thing in the world at USC, I think this is a massive boon for USC recruiting. You're going to sit there and say, you've got your quarterbacks being handled by Lincoln Riley and Kliff Kingsbury. This is a huge win for Caleb Williams for what should be his final season of college football. And it's a huge win for the Trojans moving forward to say we're going to have these two guys working with Caleb's backups this year and potentially whoever we bring in December or January for part of the next role. So I just think this is tremendous for USC. It's a huge coup for USC, which is already been on a tear by getting Lincoln Riley, by getting Caleb Williams, by getting some of the other pieces to the roster that they have.
So to touch on a little bit what you said, John, I went and looked up all the different quarterbacks Kliff has worked with since he got in coaching. From 2008 to 2011, he had Case Keenum. In 2010, Case got hurt, so you had David Pyland step in there. But Case Keenum was a 4-year starter at Houston. He goes to A&M for 1 year. Johnny Manziel wins the Heisman. Goes to Texas Tech from 2013 to 18. He has Davis Webb, and from 13-14. Then 2015-16, a guy named Patrick Mahomes comes in and wins the starting job. 2017, Nick Shimanek was his quarterback. 2018, Alan Bowman. And then this past 4 years, obviously worked with Kyler Murray with the Cardinals. And now he'll have Caleb Williams. So I count 1, 2, 3 Heisman Trophy winners, a number 1 pick, the best quarterback of his generation, perhaps the best quarterback of all time. We'll see. A 10-year, sometimes starter, sometimes backup guy, a 10-year quarterback in Keenum. Davis Webb was a 5-year quarterback, now the Broncos quarterback's coach. Alan Bowman is still in college, transferred from Tech to Michigan, then transferred from Michigan to Oklahoma State. And then Nick Shimanek, I never found that he played in a game, but he at least spent some time in camps and practice squads with the Chargers and the Commanders. So pretty salty group there, and quite a selling point for USC and future quarterbacks.
I don't suspect that many people had their eye on Lincoln Riley as the guy quick to jump to the NFL, but if SC runs out, this year, goes 13-0, whatever, all of a sudden, maybe Lincoln gets that call. He gets the call up to the bigs, and then SC has a guy sitting there like, "Hey, Kliff, how you feel about stepping into the big chair again?" I mean, this really sets Kliff up for just tremendous success so many ways. Very, very wise move on everybody's behalf, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, to your point, Scott, if USC does do that, it's again going to almost certainly be the final year of Caleb Williams, the college quarterback. So maybe some NFL franchise is looking out there saying, "Well, we saw what Lincoln did with the last 2 years of Caleb Williams in college. Why don't we go ahead and put our fortunes together and try to get those two riding at the next level as well?"
So how do we think this is going to work within the building? Obviously, he's never, since he became a head coach, never employed an offensive coordinator, never employed a quarterback's coach, and now he's got Kliff there. So do we think Lincoln makes this role to purposefully maybe spend more time, away from his quarterbacks and working with the defense, working with the off-field stuff, or is this going to be the two of them just sitting in the dark room at 4 a.m? What's going to be the division of labor? Do we think?
I don't know the answer to that. I think that if Lincoln, first of all, they're friends, they know each other very well, and they know how they would work together. They're both they're so similar in who they are and how they work. I don't think there's going to be any friction, any concern there. I think Kliff's going to do whatever Lincoln tells him to do. Says, "Hey, this is where I can use you best," and if that needs to shift during August, if it needs to shift during the season, I don't think there's any, "Hey, let's try something a little different." I think they will adapt and they will do a great job. They will respond well together, is my perception.
Yeah, I think that this will be a position that they have the ability to make it completely macro or completely micro, whatever the circumstances are needed. I just think it's going to be a tremendous win for USC football. I mean, it's heady stuff. We've seen what Nick Saban has done with his coaches' rehabilitation center in Tuscaloosa, but this is a whole other level, in my opinion. This is a guy that people weren't even convinced he was going to be let go this past season in the NFL because he had won 11 games the year before and had shown consecutive seasons of progress for Arizona. So this is a guy that needs no image rehab, that is still seen very much as a viable prime coaching candidate at the collegiate Power 5 or the NFL levels. And this is Lincoln adding him into things. So again, I expect it to be a relationship that evolves with time and can dive into the most minute details, and can also provide the 30,000 view, 30,000 foot view.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to suggest that there's going to be any friction, because I don't see. I think I agree with both of you guys. I think Kliff will be happy to do whatever Lincoln asks. I just wonder if this is Lincoln viewing as that he needs to maybe spend more time at 30,000 feet and maybe allow Kliff to handle the minutia of quarterback play and everything that goes with that.
Could be. We all saw Boise State had Dirk Cutter, quote, on the bench, so to speak, on staff, but not as the offense coordinator, and had to call him up to that role midseason and just turned that entire season around. That's not what SC is dealing with here, but sure is nice to have an NFL head coach who's only like 43 years old, on the roster. It's a riches on riches at SC. I'm excited to see what they do this season.
Yeah, sure.
Great stuff. Gentlemen, I appreciate you coming on this morning. We'll share this when we got some other thoughts coming out shortly on other additional Football Scoop podcasts. Tell the whole world we're here and we're growing, baby. Let's go.